Welcome to Highline Excel 2013 video number 8. Hey, if you want to download this workbook, this is the week 2 workbook, and this is the second workbook with the table tricks. If you want to download this and follow along, click on the link below the video. Hey, we need to talk about the Excel table feature. Now, wait a second. We already talked about the table feature back in week 1. Yes, but here we want to talk about the formula nomenclatures, or what are called structured references. So when we use the table feature, the cell references and ranges in our formulas and charts will not look the same. And so we want to talk about those. There's a bunch of cool tricks, including we're going to see a slicer formula trick and even a trick for VLOOKUP. All right, I'm going to go to the sheet T1. Now, in order to use the table feature, you have to have a proper data set. Field names at the top, records in rows. Now, I have seen occasionally when people use the table feature for non-proper data sets, but the table feature is intended for proper data sets. In particular, it needs field names to do a lot of the really cool things. All right, you click in a single cell, and to convert your proper data set to an Excel table, you go to Insert and Table. Now, Ctrl T works in 2007, 10, and 13. If you're in an earlier version, although you will not be able to do most of the tricks you see in this video, if you're in 2003, you can use Ctrl L to convert it to a table and take advantage just of dynamic ranges. All right, I'm going to click Ctrl T. I'm here in 2013. My table has headers. I hit Enter. Now we have converted our proper data set to an Excel table. There's all sorts of amazing benefits to Excel tables. The very first thing we want to do, however, is we want to click in the cell, TableTools, Design, Ribbon tab, Properties, and go up and name our table. I'm going to name it and not use any spaces. Racer table. Enter. All right, so you can see it has some formatting. That's a benefit, I guess. If you wanted to change it, you can come up to this design here. It's got some drop downs. If I scroll up, I can sort. I can filter. I'm going to come down here and uncheck and just show Azariah. Now, what's so amazing about being able to filter in particular is that we can add a totals row. So for example, here I'm going to unfilter this. Most of the time with racing, we're interested in the fastest time. And so we could add a totals row that gets the minimum value. But anytime we filter, boom, our formula in the totals row will respect the filter and give us the minimum value just for the filtered values. All right, so I'm going to add a totals row. I can do that by right-clicking, Table, Total. You could also go up to Design, and there, click it right there. There's also a strange feature. We know that Alt equals is the keyboard for the auto sum. But if you do Alt equals below a table, Alt equals, it'll add the total row. Now, when you add a total row, it adds the subtotal function, and there's a bunch of functions indicated by a number. If you're using the subtotal alone in a spreadsheet outside of the table or the subtotal feature, then you have to go figure out what all the functions are. But in a table, this is amazing. Check this out. You just click the drop down and select your function. Now, this is time, and I'm interested in the fastest time, so I'm going to say min. So the fastest time there is 37. But now I'm going to filter. I'm going to say, hey, I want to see the fastest time for Azariah. 40, the fastest time for Isaac. Select all and OK. Now, let's unfilter this because there's an even better way. And this only happens in 2013. We can add a slicer. And all a slicer is it's a beautiful, fancy, off to the side filter that will replace having to use these arrows. So I click in a single cell, go up to Design, and no way, Insert Slicer. Now, we can choose whichever field we want. I'm going to stick with Racer and Track. So Racer and Track, and then click OK. It'll give us a slicer. We can resize it. You can orientate it however you want. You can even come up and add some colors for this one. Click on the slicer. Now watch this. We can use these filters, slicer filters. Boop, click Azariah, and it filters it, and our formula updates. Isaac, Zane, clear all. We can see just the fastest time at CTAC, the fastest time at Sumner. That is absolutely amazing. Now I'm going to clear this. Let's add a new record, because that's one of the advantages we saw back in week 1. I'm going to come to the end and tab, and notice the total row just gets pushed down. This was on 9/18, and when I hit tab, it'll take the formatting from above. This was magic 41 int at CTAC. Notice I typed SE and it auto-filled from above. This was 46, and the fee was 10, and the place was 3. Now watch this. Immediately it shows up here. Is that totally amazing? Now watch this. If I click on magic here, we can see the slicer is not highlighting both. If I click on Azariah, we can see that erased it both. Now watch this. We can come over here and right-click Slicer Settings and say Hide Items with No Data. Right? So this is a little data set, but we're not only filtering, but we have this little cue over here that, yes, Isaac Race did both tracks. Magic did not. But all along that formula, just totally amazing. Now, let's go look at this formula again. We looked at the subtotal a moment ago. I'm going to hit F2. The name of the field will always be in square brackets. Now, in Business 216, we learned access, and we created some queries, and we saw there that fields always had square brackets. So it follows the same convention here. Now, in this formula, it's not using the table name. I'm going to hit Enter. Now we want to go over to T2 and talk about the table name and field name in a formula. I'm going to click on 2. Now, the examples we just looked over on T1 are amazing, because the filter then affects the formula. Here, we're going to build our formulas and charts and things off to the side. But we'll take advantage of the fact that a table is dynamic. It expands. That means when our formula is looking at some range in the table, as we add new records, it will expand. All right, so you ready? I'm actually going to create the one formula before we convert it to a table, and then one after. So I'm going to do average. We're doing blood pressure here. So I'm going to highlight. And so the average blood pressure over this period is 137. Now, I'm going to put this in edit mode. See, it says B10 to B12. I'm going to convert it to a table. Ctrl T, and then Enter. Click in a single cell. We're going to go up to Design, Properties, Table Name, and I'm going to call this Blood Pressure Table. No spaces. Enter. Now, let's add a new record. There's a few ways we can add a new record. One is to click in the last cell in the last row and hit Tab. 10/6. Now watch. I'm not going to type the 2013 when I hit Tab. The formatting from above is carried down. And this was 119. I either want to hit Enter or Control Enter. I don't want to hit Tab here because it'll add an empty record. So I'm going to hit Control Enter. And watch this. No way, the B12 changed to B13. Now that's a bit of Excel magic. An expandable range based on an Excel table. Now, we did that formula before we actually converted it to a table. Let's see what happens if we do it afterwards. Max. When we highlight this column, instantly it puts the table name and the field name in square brackets. Now, that's kind of nice. You know exactly, if you're looking at this formula, you know exactly, hey, that's from the blood pressure table and from the field called blood pressure. Close parentheses and Control Enter. Now, we can also build charts pivot tables, and other features that point at ranges. So I'm going to highlight the entire table, and we would like to insert a line chart. So I'm going to go up to Insert, Chart Group, and Line. Maybe this second one here. Instantly we have a line chart. Now let's mess with this a little bit. I'm going to click the horizontal lines, not the outside edge, and delete. And we definitely want to change the starting point. So I'm going to click on the axis. Now, it used to be that there was 3 ribbon tabs, and a lot of the things we want to do, we had to go up to the ribbon tabs. But now we right-click and go to Format Axis, or we can use the keyboard for Format Cells or Format Chart Elements. It's Ctrl 1. Now, in earlier versions, Ctrl 1 would open up a dialog box, but look at this. Task panes are one of the new things in 2013. So it immediately brings up the Format Axis. We can come here to minimum. I'm going to start it at 60. And there we have our line chart. Now, we could do a bunch more to this, but we want to see here that it's dynamic. I'm going to point to the edge and click and drag. All right, so you ready? I'm going to add a new record. Now, last time we clicked in the last cell in the last row and hit Tab. You can also just click right below 10-7, and it adds a new record. Uh-oh, 148. I'm going to hit Tab to add another one. Just like that, it's added to our chart. Just like that, our formula is updating. Just like that, our table formula nomenclature is updating. So let's see, 10/8/ just 10/8, and then back down to 131. Either Enter or Control Enter. I don't want to add a new record. That is amazing. We use the Excel table feature to create dynamic ranges for formulas and for a chart. Now let's go over to T3 and see how to do this for data validation, pivot tables, and the VLOOKUP function. I've already created a table here. Inside part of this table, that will be our VLOOKUP table. Not only that, but the items, products ID here, are going to be part of a data validation list over here. All right, you ready? We're going to click in this cell, and we'll do data validation first. Data validation, validation. The keyboard for this, in 2003, we did Alt-DL. In 2007 and later, you have to do Alt-AVV. Since this is shorter, I tend to use this one, Alt-DL. We don't want any value. We want to allow items from a list. The source, I'm going to click this column. That range will expand and contract as we add or delete records. I'm going to click OK. And we could see our products are there. So we'll select this one here. Now let's do VLOOKUP. Hey, I'm going to look this item up, comma, and the table. Watch this. We're going to highlight the inside part of the table. And there it is. I already named it VTable. No field name. It just gets the inside part of the table. Comma, the column, well, the price is in the 4th column. And we're doing exact match because we're looking up a text item. 0, close parentheses, Control Enter. Absolutely beautiful. Look at that. Now, let's test this. Let's come over here. The next record is, so I'm just hitting Tab and entering this. $25, Control Enter. Now, let's check this out. Is that totally amazing? Look at that. It shows up in our list, and instantly it gets the right price. Not only that, but if we were to delete one of these, I'm going to delete the whole row right here. Right-click, Delete. The list will update also. Totally gone is that one. Now I'm going to Control Z, Z, and leave that there. So expand, contract. Both the data validation and our VLOOKUP formula are working perfect. Now let's do a quick pivot table. Alt-NV. I'm going to put it on this existing sheet. I'm going to be really careful. Now, you never want to put it down here because the table will expand, right? I'm going to put it right here. We're just going to do a little teeny pivot table. I'm going to close this field list here. I'm going to drag the supplier to the row. I'm going to drag the price to the values. Right-click, summarize values as, and I'm going to point to average. So we're getting our average. And we could format it and do a bunch of other things. That is certainly annoying. We're going to leave it like that. Let's just see that it is dynamic. Now, the pivot table is not automatic like a formula, so we will have to refresh. But let's try it. All right, and so this one is 18 bucks. Now, let's see if it's in our list up here. Oh, that is just amazing. It looks up the 18. But notice the TF didn't update the average, but we can right-click, refresh, and instantly it updates. So even though we have an extra step here, the pivot table still respects the expandable ranges in our table. Now, let's go over and look at a few more amazing examples. Let's go to the sheet data. Here I already have a table. Transactional, we have unit and price and revenue. This is a formula. Back in week 1, we saw that formulas, if you have them in a column, as you add new records, this formula gets copied down. And here we have a total row. We're adding up the units and the revenue. Now, what we want to see is, and actually we should go look design. There's the table name. Another place to look at the names, formulas, name manager. Now the keyboard is Ctrl F3, but there it is, name manager, Ctrl F3. The table names are in this name manager also. I'm going to click escape. So our table name is going to be HD sales table. Click on T4. And what we want to see in this example is that we're on a completely different sheet. And we can access all of the data on that other sheet by using table, formula, nomenclature. Now, here we go. We want to get the max revenue from that other table. And lo and behold, if I type HD, the table name shows up in our function define name list. And I can use the table name and the field names anywhere in this workbook. Now, watch this. I'm going to type a square bracket. Oh, a new drop-down pops up with all the field names and some special other options. So what do we want? We want revenue. Close square bracket, close parentheses. So again, here on this sheet, we can see this comes from HD sales table and the revenue field. The earliest date in that set, well, we could use the min. HD tab, square bracket to get our field list, tab, because date is what I'm interested in, square bracket, close parentheses. So here I'm looking through the date column and finding the minimum date. That's the first date in our transactional table. Now there's some other options here, and let's see how they work. We could count the number of fields in a table. Now count counts not empty cells. And so that's what we're going to use, because we're counting field names, which are text. So we type HD, and then this open parentheses, and down here, headers, close parentheses, square bracket, close parentheses. So now what we're doing is we're looking at some other table on some other sheet and saying how many fields are in that table. There are 6. Now, all is a strange one. I don't think I've ever used this. Count and then HD tab, square bracket, and all the way at the bottom. This will count everything, all the cells and the field names. I don't think I've ever used that one. So there's 50 total. Totals, that will give us, and actually watch this. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to go like this. Copy, enter. F2, Control V, and now I'm going to type a square bracket. The totals, this will tell you how many calculations you have in the bottom. Now again, I've never used that. That's just totally didn't find a use for it, but it's there. And we could also count data. So F2, Control V, and the data will count all of the items in the table. Now I usually wouldn't do this. I would tend to use F2, Control V. Guess what? just like we used in VLOOKUP a little while ago, HD sales table is the whole table. Inside the table, not including field names. One other thing is the @ symbol next to a field name. That will mean this row. Let's go back to our data. This formula was created before it was converted to a table. But let's just see what happens if we created it afterwards. Because a lot of times you have a transactional data set, you convert it to a table, and then you're creating formulas later. Just so it doesn't surprise us when we see it. Units in square brackets means that field, but that @ symbol means, hey, the one in this row. Times, and then price field, hey, that means the one in this row. Control Enter, and double click and send it down. All right, so bunch of amazing options. We can type our table formula nomenclature out on a separate sheet. Now let's go over to T5. We have one last example we want to look at for tables. Now this example is going to be a bit of a doozy. And here it is. If you ever want to lock, meaning you're copying a formula that's a range, and you want to lock it, you have to do this weird construction. Put the two field names separated by a colon inside of square brackets. I mean, I wish it was easier, but it's not. Oh, but our example is pretty cool. We have a transactional data set. We are taking care of dogs. Here's the dog name, the date, invoice number, category, and the amount. And our goal is to do a cross-tabulated table and add up all the amounts. So for Fido accessories, we need to add them all up. Find the Fido over here, find all the accessories, and add them. Down here for Mandy, same thing. Mandy, accessories. Those are the two criteria that come from dog column and category column. Those are the two criteria columns. And then amount is where we add. Hey, this is the perfect job for some ifs. All right, sum range. Well, normally we just highlight this, right? We've seen so far, but oh, no way. We have to do this strange thing here. If that's going to be absolute, meaning we copy down and over. And by the way, if you're only copying down, it will be absolute. It's only when you copy it to the side that it moves relatively. So it's very strange. But I want it locked in all directions. So I have to add an extra square bracket, colon, square bracket, and another amount, square bracket, square bracket. Oh, that is just amazing. All right, comma, and then the criteria range. Well, we'll do the dog first. Oh, and the same thing here. So square bracket, dog, colon, square bracket, dog, square bracket, square bracket. You got to be kidding me. Look at that. Comma. Now here's the easy part. You never thought mixed cell references would be easy, right? But so we've looked at the dog category. But for us, our criteria for that criteria range, criteria 1 is going to be Fido. Now we have to think about mixed cell references. So as we copy the formula down, we want it to move to Fluffy and then Gigi. So no $ in front of the number. But when we copy it over to accessories and boarding, we need it locked on Fido. So because we're copying it across the columns, we have to hit the F4 1, 2, 3 times and lock the letter G, but not the 4. All right, comma. Criteria range, well, we have category, square bracket, colon, square bracket, cat, square bracket, square bracket. Oh, and look, it's not lit up in color because I typed a semicolon, not a semicolon, not a colon. Comma. And then criteria, that's this one. Mixed cell references are easy compared to that, right? All right, so when we're copying it down, we need it locked when we copy down across the numbers, the rows. So I hit F4 and lock the row reference 3. When I copy it to the side across the columns, I want food to move to accessories and boarding, so no $ in front of that H. That is a wild formula. Control Enter. Copy it over and down. And so we only have 2 dogs so far, but as we add new transaction, here's Gigi. $500 for food. Oh, my heavens. What kind of dog food is Gigi eating? All right, there's one other note here, just a kind of obscure table trick. We don't need to worry about that. But here we saw how to lock a structured reference or table formula nomenclature. We saw some great examples of how we can be on a different sheet and just type them out. We saw amazing expandable ranges, and that's really one of the most powerful aspects of the table feature. We saw it for data validation, for VLOOKUP, for a pivot table. We saw over here for formulas and for a chart that those expandable ranges work. And over here we saw the amazing total rows for filter, including new slicers in 2013 for tables. All right, we'll see you next week for the week 3 videos. See you next video.